A year ago, I did something I thought I'd never have the courage to do. I quit my corporate job in risk management. I had no backup plan, no idea what was next, just a gut feeling that the life I was living wasn't the one I wanted for myself. Like a lot of people, especially if you were brought up in an Asian household, I was raised to value financial stability and education from a young age. I had always performed well in school, which led me to pursuing a degree in commerce and ultimately dedicating majority of my 20s to climbing the corporate ladder. There was a very clear road to success planned out for me if I had chosen to keep going. But even with my largely positive experience in corporate, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the life I wanted for myself. Fast forward to today. I've spent the past year reflecting on what I want my life to look like whilst having the most fun and freedom I've ever had. I got married, moved into my new home, I travelled a lot, and now I'm at a point where I'm figuring out what's next for my career. But before I get into that, let's rewind to why I quit in the first place. Okay, let me start off by saying quitting was not an easy decision. I had to come to terms with giving up my high-paying salary and career that I had worked 8 years towards. I had to let go of my family and society's definition of success. And I think the scariest part of it all was that I really didn't know where I was going next. Despite all that, what drove me to still take that risk and quit my corporate job was because of these 5 realizations that I'm going to share with you. My first realization was you don't need everything figured out to take the first step. I used to think that I needed to have the perfect plan and all the answers before I quit. For the longest time, I think the one question that was weighing on my mind was, what am I going to do when I quit? And what am I going to tell people I'm going to do when I quit? When people found out that I was taking a break from work, the first question would be, what are your plans? Are you going to be traveling the world? Are you starting your own business? Are you going back to study, change career paths? People's expectations were generally just so grand because I had built a track record of being a sensible, stable, and logical person. I just felt like I needed a solid plan, or else I'd come off as someone who was directionless. Her life is in shambles, like she's completely gone off the rails. What's happening to her? The truth is, I was directionless, by the way. I mean, this corporate job was the only thing I knew. I had no other skill because I had been developing deep knowledge of this one thing since I was 21. There was no other time in my day or in my week where I even had the energy to pursue anything different. Then I realized I didn't really need to have everything figured out before I quit. I realized I didn't need all the answers before I left. What I needed was time to explore, try new things, and see what felt right. I guess it's kind of like dating. Not that I have much experience in dating, but you learn through trial and error. Each experience helps you figure out what truly works for you. Before this, I had never taken the time to explore different opportunities. I kind of just fell into my degree and career, but that's a story for next time. I was living life following in the footsteps of others without considering what was fulfilling for me. And now that I was in a financial position to do so, it just felt so freeing to be able to finally take the time to explore what I wanted for myself at my own pace. The second realization was that I didn't want the life or career path of those who were ahead of me. I knew I never wanted to be a director or partner in the field that I was in. Whenever I looked to a successful person in those positions, I always felt that they truly had a passion for risk management. They truly loved to talk about the work they were doing. Meanwhile, I had climbed the corporate ladder to a point where the next step would take me closer to that life. And I didn't want it. I didn't want to even work towards the next promotion. I couldn't see myself in the shoes of people who were like 5 to 10 years ahead of me. I didn't see that life as an appealing life to me personally. I didn't really particularly enjoy talking about risk all day. And if that wasn't the future I wanted, then why was I spending every single day working towards that? Like, that was not logical. It was not making sense. My third realization was that I was already living my worst case scenario. I have always been someone to think of like the worst case scenario of everything before making any important decisions in my life, in the hopes that if I considered the worst outcome and I'm still comfortable with my decision, that means I probably wouldn't regret it in the future. When it came to whether or not to quit my corporate job, I realized a worst case scenario was trying and testing out everything else that I was potentially interested in and failing at it so miserably that I have to come back to the current field that I was in. And then it clicked for me that if this was the worst case scenario, I was already living the worst case scenario, which sounded so sad and miserable, but that sudden epiphany was like, wow, what am I doing? Why would I continue doing this? Of course, I knew I was always able to come back into this role, which I am very grateful for, because the actual worst case scenario is having no safety net to fall back on if I ended up really struggling financially. My fourth realization was that my priorities had shifted. Your priorities can change and evolve as you grow and depending on your life stage, and it did for me. When I was 21, I didn't have any work experience at all. My key priority was to get a good job, get a good pay, save all my money, build a solid network around me. By the time I decided to quit, I had 8 years of savings and 8 years of knowledge and experience in the field that I was working in. And then I realized over the course of that time, my priorities had then shifted. I no longer wanted to further deepen my skills in a job I didn't enjoy. To clarify, I did have the technical skills, but with any corporate job, as you progress to more senior positions, it becomes less about the technical skills and more about the networking, bringing in work, people management, strategy, and that was all just not for me. And I had to learn that about myself. My younger self thought that I'd one day grow into that and eventually I'll enjoy the talking and the networking. It never happened. By the time I decided to quit my job, I was 28, turning 29, and instead of progressing through the corporate ladder, my priority kind of shifted to living a more fulfilling life, a more fun life for myself, to experience and learn things that personally aligned with me. And the final point is, I am the youngest I'll ever be today. I don't have any dependents relying on me financially yet. I knew if there was ever a time to take a break, it was now. I knew I still had time on my side if I fail at everything and I needed to rebuild my savings from scratch. Again, what is the worst case scenario? I continue my corporate job for another 10 years. I've climbed further up the corporate ladder. I would have spent all those years thinking about all the what ifs. And at that point, I may already have my own family and children, and I may not be able to take this time for myself without feeling guilty. And I'm not okay with living that worst case scenario. If you've made it so far into the video, then thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got inspired or had fun just learning more about me. I'm going to be posting more about my journey and what I've been up to after I quit the 9 to 5. So if you're interested in the journey, or if you just want to support me and give me some motivation to keep going, please subscribe to this channel and follow along. Bye!